So let's do Kill Your Friends, which is the screen adaptation of John Niven's novel, which was inspired by his own time, to some extent, working in the British music industry, A&R recruitment, that sort of thing. There's a thing about him famously turning down Coldplay and Muse, although, as he said, it wasn't like they were standing in the room, and he just said, no, I don't think. He just thought, well, I don't really like that, I don't really get that. So anyway, the best way of understanding it is this kind of satire on the music industry set in the 1990s, sort of Britpop era. And essentially, it's American Psycho does the Britpop years in Britain. And Nicholas Hoult is Stephen Selfox, who is this incredibly, well, apparently utterly talentless, not to mention charmless A&R man who begins the film very much like Patrick Bateman's kind of VOs in American Psycho, explaining to us the philosophy, which is that, guess what? The music industry is a bit money-led.
You see, there's one thing you have to understand about the music industry. We have no obligation to make art. We have no obligation to make political statements. We have no obligation to make good records. We have an obligation to make money. Now, in order to make money, we may sometimes have to make art. We may sometimes have to make political statements. Sometimes we may even have to make good records. Our record company receives 500,000 demos a year. We sign just 10 of them. And who makes these choices? Who is responsible for dividing the wheat from the chaff and providing the soundtrack to your short life on this planet? Us. The elite, the chosen few, the best of the best. The A&R men.
Essentially, what you then get is this romp through the music industry as seen through the eyes of Stephen Selfox, who is, as I said, completely loathsome, and he attempts to sign successful bands. There is a massive amount of drug taking. He is completely venal and without redeeming grace whatsoever. So on the one hand, you're thinking of Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. On the other hand, you'd be thinking perhaps of Jordan Belfort from Wolf of Wall Street. The problem with the film is this. The real genius of Mary Harron's adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho is that it transforms the novel into something which is visually witty. And what that does is it means that in the most poisonous thoughts of Patrick Bateman, all of which, incidentally, as far as American Psycho is concerned, may be happening only within his head rather than in the real world, but are all turned into something which works on screen. And I think people underrate just how smart a job Mary Harron did of that. In the case of this, what you find is that old problem of spending 90 minutes or so in the company of a completely loathsome and, I have to say, largely uninteresting industry wonk, saying things which are sort of shock jockey in their, outrage, references to Nazis and the Holocaust and, just saying really, really vile things under the pretense of, well, this is what the music industry is like. The music industry is this sort of hotbed of lying and cheating and avarice and vice, and we don't care about music. Well, firstly, I kind of know that anyway, and I'm not that bothered. Secondly, in order to make that character interesting, the film would have to be much more witty than it is. And you end up it's like that thing about being in a room with a bunch of people who you just want to leave. It's not funny enough to get over the obnoxiousness of the ideas. The ideas themselves aren't presented in a way which is original enough to make you think, wow, this is really lifting the lid. Because the idea that the music industry is run by people who don't know anything and are totally obsessed with money is hardly new. I mean, it's kind of, we sort of all know that. I mean, every single pop movie that I can think of, dating, right back to the early Elvis movies and going through Slade in Flame and, it's the same story. I mean, Espresso Bang, they're all the same story, which is that you have musicians who do stuff and then you have people who are trying to make money out of them. And occasionally those two things intersect and you manage to make art out of it. But it's kind of, that's an unusual thing. So amidst all the drug taking and amidst all the violence and amidst all the chauvinism and amidst all the rest of it, you keep thinking this needs to catch fire. It needs to pick itself up. It needs to turn itself into a movie which is fun to watch. It's nothing to do with the characters being nice. It's not to do with the fact that the characters are, characters are objectionable. That's fine. Look at American Psycho, in which you have Patrick Bateman, and that movie is really, really dark and fun to watch. This is like English Psycho, but without the edges.
And the name of the movie is?
It's called Kill Your Friends.